Perfect.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. What month is it? June.
End of June. It's almost July.
Almost July.
It's
wow.
July. But it is summertime now in the Northern Hemisphere, as I've been corrected, because yes, there's people from all over the world watching.
Right. It's your favorite season. Your favorite weather.
I know we spent about a week in Palm Springs for our anniversary. And then here where we live, it's like 90s, 100 every day. And I'm loving it.
Wow. Yeah. We're very polar opposite here.
Is it hot there though, where you are?
It's hot. It's like, I think it's just 90 or 91 every day for the next like 2 weeks, which
and you hate it.
I hate it with every ounce of my being. I like the second it gets over like 80, 82, like even not even 85, like 80, I'm very irritable. I don't love the heat.
I'm loving it. I don't know what to say. Even my husband, we spent a week in the desert in Joshua Tree, Palm Springs. He came back. He's like, I don't know. It reset me. I like the heat now.
That is wild. Wild.
So yeah, I mean, let's talk about our topic this month. We're talking about the holistic home. Mm-hmm. So all of the things that we can do to have a well-balanced home for our mind, body, spirit. And a lot of that does involve toxins, but it involves other things too. And so we'll talk about that and how to make our home a really nurturing, sacred space for ourselves to contribute to our health. Perfect. And if you guys are watching, we, love when you chime in. If you have questions, we're going to have Q&A at the end, but you can also just chime in the middle. And if it's relevant, we'll just throw your question in. Heather is here saying the heat is rough. So we got one for your team here, Neeyaz.
Great. See?
I'm loving the heat, guys. But no, it is. I know it can be really dangerous too. Because there's, if you don't have air conditioning, you don't have shelter, you don't have shade, you need to stay extra hydrated. But
well, welcome, Heather.
Yes. Thanks for joining us, Heather. So we're going to dive right in because we have so much to talk about today. And, really we've clumped a lot of topics here into what makes a holistic, healthy home. And so we're kind of just going to dive right in. But, one of the big topics that we hear a lot about when we talk about things in the home are the endocrine disruptors. So Neeyaz is going to just overview that a little bit. And for all of our members, in your portal, you will have access to the mini guide. And the mini guide has so many details and tricks and tips. It's kind of like your Spark Notes to this topic. So it'll give you like action steps and just the facts that you need to know. So all of this stuff, if you miss it on the call, or if we're just breezing over it because we have limited time, you can get it all in your mini guide after this call in the portal. If you're not a member, sign up and you can have downloads for the past 3 months as well. Awesome. So take it away, Neeyaz. Tell us about it.
I also love that we call it a mini guide because every time I look at it, I'm like, this is a Bible.
Yeah, it's like comprehensive. I know, every month. Yeah.
This month's is like very comprehensive just because we're detailing out and explaining so many things like these endocrine disruptors. Like I can name out a word, but somebody could be like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's great that we're also just defining these words too. I mean, I don't know about you, but like holistic home and like cleaning up like my cleaning products and my makeup products and like just all the different things that we're going to be talking about over this call. This was probably the topic that was the most overwhelming for me when I started on my own healing journey. And I still to this day, I'm like learning new things about like, oh, I shouldn't have bought this product because it has this in it. Like, it's such a like ever learning one. So
it is. And it is a very overwhelming topic. And I think it can be, sometimes it can feel like you're never doing enough, or there's always going to be problems or toxins in your home or in your environment. But that's why in our mini guide and on this call today, we're going to give you like the top 10 things that you can do that will actually have a significant impact on your home and your environments and creating that non-toxic environment. So they're actually very easy. They're very inexpensive. They're very actionable. And it's not like you need to overhaul your life or become an expert on this. So we're going to go into those top 10 things over this call, and we'll sum them up at the end and they'll be in your mini guide. So
just take what you can, utilize what you can. Don't feel like you have to do every single thing that we're talking about. It's more or less like whatever's accessible to you, but we're just here to like educate you and give you the information so that way you know it and you have it.
Yeah. So without turning this into a science lecture, just give us like the top points of those. What are endocrine disruptors and what are some of the most common ones that people?
So to put it very simply, endocrine disruptors are anything that's going to disrupt the endocrine system. That's essentially what it is, without even adding too much science or color to it. And there are ones that are the most common and the most commonly found in products that we use day to day. So again, there's a whole list of the ones that are the most common in the mini guide, but I'll just kind of breeze through what those are and kind of like which products are more or less like prevalent in them. So the first one at the very top of my head that I always think of is BPA, which I'm sure we've all heard of. We've seen it on like canned foods, BPA free. But BPA is a synthetic chemical. So usually it's ones that are found in like canned foods and sometimes children's toys and plastic drinking bottles and plastic containers and even like paper receipts when you go to the store and you're getting a receipt. I always opt out of receipt, or I do a digital receipt, because I don't want to like touch it and then have it be on my skin and then like God knows wherever I put my hands after. So that's the first one is BPA. The second is like dioxins. So those are it's essentially a contaminant. And that's found in things like dairy products and contaminated water, contaminated drinking water. So this is why, which we're going to talk about later, we'll touch on later, is focusing on foods that are organic or that fall within the most ideally organic food list that are really important to utilize within your day-to-day. The third is heavy metals, so things like lead and mercury, which we're going to talk about a little bit later when we talk about fish. Again, these are also naturally occurring chemicals, but they are found in things like shellfish, cigarette smoke, contaminated food, and even like paint that's used in buildings prior to like the late 1970s, early 1980s. So if you're buying a house and it hasn't been painted since that time, you probably want to address the paint that's on the walls and have it, however they fix it, but like making sure that the paint is stripped down and you're painting it with a lead-free paint. And usually most paints nowadays are lead-free, which is great, but always good to just like double check that the paint you have on your wall is the one that's lead-free.
Yeah, and another big source of heavy metals, which we'll talk about quickly in just a little bit, is our water, unfortunately. Yeah. And I will give you a source where you can check what your actual local water has in it, so you know what sort of filters that you might need to invest in, because sometimes you don't need to get the full system of like, the big water filtration system, because your water source at your zip code in your home might actually be not that bad, or it might be really bad and you might really want to consider water filtration. But the heavy metals are a really big one. And we're going to give you options that are like advanced and really excellent, and also very affordable, low cost options of how to get those heavy metals out of the water.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge, huge valuable resource.
Yeah.
Another endocrine receptor is organophosphate, which are herbicides, pesticides that are usually sprayed on crops and plants that are generally not organic in that case. So the ones that are conventionally grown in anything that's more or less in a contaminated groundwater or ground soil, where it's going to have that kind of disruptor in it. This one is kind of timely, just given that it's almost 4th of July, but this one is usually found in something like fireworks. Percolate, which is it's a natural man-made oxidizer, but it's also found in airbags in the car. It's found in matches, which is kind of annoying, but it is. I also just like love striking and smelling a match, but I don't do it every day. I don't do it as like an extracurricular, but
I know some people love the smell of gasoline.
Yeah, and, I sometimes do when I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, do not inhale this all the time. It's actually nice with the masks now, because I do wear a mask when I'm at the gas station. I'm like, it's kind of nice to like have that protection. But
I know, or like when people would smoke on the street and I was like wearing a mask outside, I was like, oh, this actually is very helpful.
No, totally. It's funny. This is like off topic, but I was talking to a friend of mine who was going to Mexico City, and I was telling him how like smoking there is really popular. It does smell like cigarette smoke a lot, and I'm very sensitive to tobacco. It's like one of my allergies. And I was like, wow, if I go now, I have a reason to like wear a mask and not look like a crazy person and actually like be able to breathe, which is so lovely.
Yeah.
Anyway, another one is called it's PFC. It's perfluorinated chemicals. These are things that are, again, found in something like groundwater. It's found in microwavable popcorn. It's found in those nonstick cookwares that you see, being advertised on things like Instagram, which I'm a sucker for it. I bought something and I was like, crap,
I know. We had this discussion. I was like, wait a minute, how is that pot nonstick? And you were like, wait a minute, I'm going to
I know
send
you
this
called me
back.
out on it. I was like, dang it, I'm returning. I didn't even think about that. So again, we don't do everything perfectly, and I forget a lot of the times. So that's another one. Phthalates are another one. Those are found in things like detergents, which we're going to talk about. A lot of children's products, all children's toys and diapers, sanitary napkins, and food packaging as well too. The second to last one is BPDE, which is polyprominated diphenyl ether. This is something that's found in carpets, in furniture, and in mattresses. It's used generally as a flame retardant, which, sounds like, okay, that's a good thing, but also not so great because it is an endocrine disruptor. So making sure that the carpets that you're using, the furniture that you're buying, the mattresses that you're buying are free of BPDE, organic, and, just like really well made.
So we recently moved and we had to buy a bunch of new furniture. So I have a list that we're going to put in the mini guide of some furniture stores, like larger chains too, that actually do really great, kind of, I don't know what the word is. Like they're actually really good at keeping these chemicals off of their furniture. IKEA surprisingly being one of them. So I have a list of some of like the big chains that actually don't use a lot of these flame retardants and, like furniture glues and things like that. Honestly, I never really thought of until my husband and I went to go purchase new furniture. And we're like, wait a minute, our new mattress is going to be covered in flame retardant. Our new furniture is are going to have wood and sealant and all like flame retardant sprayed on them. So I did a lot of research, and I'm going to put that in the mini guide for you guys, because there are some really accessible, affordable companies that you don't have to special order the furniture, and they have reduced toxic load in the furniture.
That's great. I'm not surprised about IKEA considering it's from Europe.
Yeah, it's from Europe, and they also have a lot of like unfinished furniture. It's like they have it in just like the standard wood where it's not stained, it's not painted, so you can kind of use whatever you want on it. But IKEA is actually one of the higher standards of clean furniture.
And it's affordable, which we love.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the last one is BCB, which again is another synthetic chemical. It's usually found in like fluorescent lighting, foam, which may or may not be found in something like furniture, oil-based paint. So if you're a painter, making sure that you're using like really clean paints, oil paints, and then again, plastics, which plastics just show up all the time, and we're going to kind of get into that a little bit later. But essentially, those are the most common ones. And again, like more details about each of them are in the mini guide as well too.
Yeah, because to be honest, like when I hear a lot of these words, I kind of just glaze over and I go, it's like I don't know how to control this stuff, right? But the things that you guys can control and the things that you can do are we're going to talk about mostly, and we're going to get into next. So if you are watching, let us know where you're watching from. I'm in Northern California.
I'm in SoCal.
Southern California. We're both in a like high 90s, 100-degree heat wave here. I'm loving it. She's hating it. But let us know where you're watching from and what the temperature's like if you're having a hot summer day too.
Yeah.
And if you have questions or comments, throw them in the chat too, because we're going to dive right into like the actionable stuff that you guys can do.
Great.
So one of the first things I think about when I think about like a holistic home, which I've sort of over time stair-stepped our home into, but when I go visit family or, stay somewhere else, I always think about these things. But it really comes down to the cleaning products, because those are things that we all need to use. We need to keep our home clean. But unfortunately, a lot of like the traditional cleaning products or the stuff that I grew up with is actually very, very toxic. And a lot of us will notice that because we'll have an adverse reaction to just the smell of it, or maybe our skin, it's actually kind of hard for some of us to use things like Clorox or Ajax or these sort of things to clean our house. And so thankfully there are a lot of natural and very effective alternatives to that. Like a natural alternative to a Clorox or bleach would be hydrogen peroxide or, even 7th generation, like they sell that in the bottle as a bleach alternative. And you can use that to soak things and sanitize them. But, one of the most common ones is just vinegar-based things. Yeah. So like putting vinegar and essential oils and lemon, lemon or essential oils into a spray actually becomes highly effective for cleaning surfaces, even cleaning toilet bowls or showers or things like that. So I know, I lived in Berkeley for a very long time, and Berkeley's pretty aware of a lot of these things. So a lot of restaurants I'd go to, they would use just vinegar and water and essential oils to spray the tables, to clean things off. So that is something that is really effective. You can use those types of cleaners. And actually this month in our recipe guide, I have a whole handful of recipes for cleaning recipes around the house. So they involve essential oil blends, baking soda, vinegar, these sort of things that we can use that are all really non-toxic, things that actually you could eat. Like you could eat the vinegar if you use it appropriately, or the baking soda. So those are like kind of the basics when we get to cleaning products. And then there's like, to make it easier, if you don't want to make your own, there's definitely brands that are better. So generally, the easiest one for me to find if I'm just going to grab something is 7th Generation.
Same.
Do you have a favorite one? Is that
7th Generation is my go-to. I'm also just like, I have a coconut allergy, which I know is in, what's the other one called? Branch Basics, which is an amazing brand, but they use coconuts, like a binder in one of their main product, which is just, unfortunately I can't use it. But the laundry detergent by 7th Generation is like the one that I loved forever.
Yeah. So, just the easy swap is getting 7th Generation or Branch Basics, or, there's another one called Ecos laundry detergent, or Eco Over. We're going to put all the names of these brands in the mini guide. But I use that for my laundry detergent, and it's actually available at Costco. So if you guys are, discount shoppers or bulk shoppers, you can go get the Eco laundry detergent at Costco. And then there's another one that's the dishwasher tablets. It's called like Ecover or something. I'll put the exact name in the brand, but it works surprisingly well. Like my parents still kind of use the traditional Cascade or whatever on their dishes. And I use this more non-toxic one, and we find that it's really effective, and it actually cleans the dishes better than like the Cascade things.
That's great.
So those, you want to think about your laundry detergents, your dish soaps, your dishwashing tablets or liquids, and your hand soap as well. So, I get a bar of, it's like South of France brand of soap. It's really just like, I think it has coconut, shea butter, and almond, and it's just a basic soap. And I use that for my body, my hands, at the sink. But you want to think about all these things that are coming in contact with you, your clothes, the dishes and everything that you use every day, and the sheets that you sleep on, because if they are full of those endocrine disruptors that Neeyaz detailed at the beginning of this call, they will get absorbed through your skin and into your body. So that's a big way that we get endocrine disruptors into our body. So briefly, without getting crazy into all the details, we'll give you all the brands in the mini guide, but you really want to start just picking swaps for the things that you're already using. And they're way, way more accessible now. And then for fabric softener, I actually have an example of it here. These are wool balls. They're literally just wool. And they're, this is a newer one, so it's a little more tight and compact. And this is like a used one. You can see there's a little bit of like linen on it, and it's like looser and fluffier. But you can actually swap your fabric softener in your dryer for these wool balls. And this will get all the static cling out of your clothes. And it's really natural. And I don't know, I love using these. I swapped to these a couple years ago, and I have not used a dryer sheet or fabric softener since. And I don't have clothes that has static cling or sticks to each other. And a cool little thing you can do is get your favorite essential oil and actually just put a drop or two onto the wool ball. So when you throw it into the dryer, you then get a little bit of that like refreshing scent that you would get from a fabric sheet or fabric softener. So those are, some of the most easy swaps. Like this one to me, and these are reusable. I don't think I've ever like thrown them away. Like this is maybe one of the original ones I bought a couple years ago. Maybe we got some new ones, but they do tend to like say there's a lifetime on them, but it's just wool. Like what it's doing in there as it's being tossed with your clothes is it's like helping with that static and those electrons. So it helps with the static on your clothes there. So those are some easy swaps that you can do just with cleaning products and stuff. And those are the things that we're actually coming into contact with, like the chemicals. So we just want to start to think about those. And if you guys have favorite brands, leave them in the comments, or if there's things you've tried or you actually have tried and you don't like, let us know that too. Because so far we've had good success with these brands and we like to share that with everyone else in the community. But beyond just the chemicals we touch, there's the air we breathe. So Neeyaz is going to tell us about air quality.
Yes. So I currently have 2 air, what's it called? Oh my God, purifiers running into my room right now. And it is mind blowing. Like when you go to actually clean the filters out, how much gets sucked into these air filters. It's like, wow, the air is actually not really all that clean. And you can also, it helps a lot with allergies. It helps to purify the air. I notice usually around like allergy seasons too, I've noticed that like my symptoms are really suppressed ever since having used these air filtration systems within my home and within my rooms, especially. But making sure, especially if you are running something like central air or heat during the colder months, that the filters are really clean. It's amazing how much can get stuck onto those filters or onto the vents, throughout the rest of the year. So make sure that you're cleaning out those vents, you're cleaning out those, I'm like staring at mine, you're cleaning out the vents and all of that as frequently as you can, because imagine if the air is pushing through these vents, it's then shooting out things like dust and allergens and pollen and whatever else gets stuck into these vents and filters. I love personally, I like to either I use beeswax candle. I make them myself too, but I love to also just buy them if I can. But beeswax is really, really amazing because it actually helps to filter the air. It's non-toxic. It's not an endocrine disruptor versus candles that have things like fragrances in them. And then you're lighting it and then you're breathing in, in this air, it can be really detrimental too. So something like that I love to also light throughout the day. I also use a diffuser. Same thing with the essential oils. You can put any kind of oil that you love, any kind of scent that you love with some water and just let it diffuse the air. And honestly, it like smells really nice. And I feel like it lasts longer than for me to just like light a candle. So that's another thing that I also really love. And then plants, which I know you and I both love. I'm going to look at the one behind you. We love, yes, perfect. So this is a list of plants that are really great to help with, filtration for, you can have them indoors. So these are some of our favorite ones. I have like 2 of these in my bedroom. And, throughout the house, they're kind of all scattered around. But these are generally like the ones that I really love to help with air filtration as well, too. So these are very natural and accessible ways to help with the air quality.
Yeah. That was a really cool learning point for me about a year or 2 ago about how plants actually filter the air. Like it's not just like oxygen and carbon dioxide, because I knew about that exchange from science class in grade school, but I didn't realize that they also remove things like formaldehyde and benzene and like these really potent toxins. They actually filter those out in the air. One of my favorites is aloe vera. That's a great one to leave in the bedroom too, because it actually has a really good balance of that oxygenation and filtration. So,
plants that you love?
Sorry, what did you say?
Do you have any favorite plants?
I really like the aloe. It's also really low maintenance. I'm actually not very good at keeping plants alive. So,
oh no, they're hard.
Yeah, aloe is a pretty easy one. And I do like the money plant that you listed, just because of the superstition around also.
That's this one here.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
He was so small when I bought him. He's so big now.
So I have 2 money plants. That one is the little one, which is the Chinese money plant. And then there's the money tree, which has like the larger leaves.
Right.
And it's named that because they actually look like little coins of money, or there's a superstition around as that thrives, you get fortune in your life as well.
I've also heard them be called the friendship plant.
Oh, I haven't heard that one, but
yeah, it's when I went to buy this one, they told me it's a money plant and a friendship plant. I was like, well, which one is it? Am I getting friends or am I getting money?
It's all the same fortune, right?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, it's a fortune plan. You can just call it that.
Yeah. So all those, I am not a big plant person, but obviously I think a lot of people got into plants over the pandemic because we're spending all this time in our house. And not only do they add greenery and a little bit of life to a really sterile environment, but they actually reduce toxins, which is freaking amazing in my opinion. Like I didn't know that was actually part of the benefit of having plants. I actually read an article the other day about how plants are sentient beings and they have like nerve fibers and they feel pain and they have like families. And like if you like rehome a plant from like one soil to another, it goes through this whole like emotional rehoming process. It was crazy. It was a crazy article.
We did that last month with my parents' plants, and there were flies that ended up showing up when we changed the soil out was atrocious. I was like, oh, these plants are not happy.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, again, like I said, I've not spent a lot of time growing plants, but yeah. Sorry, it's frozen for me right now. Can you hear me?
Oh no, I can hear you.
Okay, it froze for a second, so I lost a little of what you were saying there.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so I think it's all good now. So we talked about the air quality stuff. We're going to put that in the mini guide as well. I have pretty simple air filters at home. This also becomes an issue if you guys live, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of becoming a worldwide issue, but in California, in the Western United States, there is like wildfire season, unfortunately, that happens now. And so that air quality is not just environmental, it gets into our house as well. So like Neeyaz was talking about having those filters where you want to make sure you clean them out at least once a year to get all those pollutants out. But there's also filtration systems that you can add that like clean things like the toxins from the wildfires. But in addition to that, we also want to look at the water quality in your house. And so this is a topic that I've talked about extensively in our club. And I've done like a really deep dive review of our water filtration system in our house. But my top choice for water filtration for drinking water is the Berkey system. And one of the reasons I really love the Berkey is because it's a pretty big upfront investment, but after you get, your system set up and you get your initial filtration, you don't really need to invest much in it. It lasts years and years and years. And the thing I really love about the Berkey is that it's also like disaster and emergency proof because there is no electricity or any pumps or anything associated with it. It's all gravity based. So if you guys are not familiar with it, I'll put a link in the comments, or you guys can also look in the mini guide. But there are these big stainless steel units, which is one of the reasons why I love it, because the water that is being stored and filtered is always housed in a stainless steel container. But also the carbon filters are really fantastic at removing things like pathogens, viruses, parasites, bacteria, mold from the water, but also all those things that Neeyaz talked about, like the endocrine disruptors, the heavy metals, even pharmaceuticals that are unfortunately contaminating our water source now. So even if, you guys are just using like tap water, because the pharmaceutical drugs, like sometimes people dump them down the toilet or they just get into our water source, those drugs get diluted and then they end up in our water source. And those are not things that like chlorination or kind of the sanitation that the city does. It doesn't remove those from our water source. So having your drinking water have a filter that removes things like pharmaceutical drugs and heavy metals and pathogens is really, really important and vital. So if that's not something that you've invested in, you might want to start thinking about that, because not only is hydration and drinking water important, but that quality of that water and what it's exposing you to as well. So the Berkey is an upfront investment, but after that, the costs are really low maintenance and it lasts for 3 to 5 years before you even need to change the filter. And then all you do is buy new carbon filters. There are other ones that can be almost as effective at removing things like glyphosate, but maybe not all of the pathogens and all of the heavy metals that the Berkey removes. One of them, I believe, is called Zero Water. I think that's the name of it. It's a pitcher. It's a plastic container. And I think it's even available at Walmart. So that one's really accessible. We'll put the links to that in the mini guide. And there's another one that I can't, it's like Water Pail, I think it's called. It's also a large pail. It's a plastic unit. So these are really great for emergency or kind of a more economical option. But there is still those plastics involved with it. As long as the water's not heated up and it's not stored there for a long time, I would give that a pass and say that it's better to filter the water than to not do it at all. If you can only get the Water Pail or the zero water, but that's one of the reasons why I like the Berkey. And also with a lot of these carbon filtration systems, they don't always remove the necessary minerals, which is really great too. Because sometimes when you over filter water, it removes the minerals and then our body actually becomes more dehydrated. So we want to add back in those minerals. So just to, keep that simple is getting a water filtration system. So your drinking water or maybe even your cooking water can be like, I use that when I boil food or, cook my veggies or anything like that, not just for drinking. And then as an extension of that, I didn't do this in the beginning, but my next step was to add filters to my shower heads.
Game changer.
Which it really was a life changer. I did it for myself. I added one to my parents' shower as well. And these are not as sophisticated filters as the drinking water, but one of the things that they remove is chlorine. And so most of them remove about 95 to 99% of chlorine.
Yeah.
And so that for anybody who has thyroid condition or any like immune, it's a major disruptor to the thyroid. So removing that chlorine actually helps your thyroid health and your thyroid function. And we also noticed our skin was smoother and less dry and our hair was getting thicker. And all of that obviously is related to thyroid health, but also the chlorine itself is a toxin that we don't necessarily want to be bathing in that's getting absorbed through our skin all the time. So those water filters, once you make the investment and you just buy the water filter or you install the shower head, you literally don't have to think about it anymore. So that's one of my favorite kind of recommendations or first steps for people to reduce that toxic load in their home, because you don't have to do that again and again every day. It's like you just install it and it's done for you. So you have much less exposure there.
I also love to use when I like take a bath. Not really these days because it's so hot. But I like to use these vitamin C tablets that I bought them on Amazon, and you just throw them into your bath water, and it helps to neutralize the water and also to reduce the amount of chlorine that might be in your bath water. So even if you are still using a filtration system, I still do it just like as extra security. But those are wonderful as well too. So we'll provide a link for that in the mini guide too.
That's it's like an all natural holistic bath bomb.
Yeah, exactly. You just put it in like before you add like your soaps or your essential oils or whatever, and it just like dissolves and you don't even smell or anything. So
that's awesome. Yeah. So if you can't get one of the filters installed, just think about these things that you can do to improve that experience while you're bathing, because that's another thing that sometimes people haven't really thought about when they shower or they bathe. They are literally soaking in the water, and our skin, it's not like a complete sealant, right? Things get absorbed through our skin. When we talked about our detox systems and all of that in a previous month, the skin is one of our biggest detox organs. So not only do things get out of our skin, but that's how a lot of things get in. So when Neeyaz was talking about BPA and all of that sort of stuff, like on receipts, when you touch receipts at grocery stores, that becomes a way that it absorbs through your skin, or you might like touch your mouth or your nose and it gets in through your mucous membrane. So just being aware that our skin, anything our skin comes in contact with, is also a potential pathway for things in our home or environment to get into our body.
Exactly.
Great. So the water, we had kind of already talked about this, but the air quality stuff, if you do like to have a, fresh smelling home or, beyond just the water filtration or opening your windows or things like that, you really want to switch away from things that have fragrances or perfumes. I know that a lot of us grew up with that, or sometimes even when I go to public spaces or go to a hotel or something, it's like you see a Glade plug-in plugged in or something. And so if you guys are still using those, that would be a really easy thing you can do to reduce the toxic load in your home, is just get rid of fragrances and air fresheners and Glade plugins and Febreze and those sort of things.
Yeah.
I know they're marketed as like these natural, fresh smelling, make your house cleaner and fresher, but really they're just chemical toxins that are increasing that toxic load. So again, getting things like, you can get really wonderful smelling essential oils and use a diffuser like Neeyaz talked about. So like in the holidays, if you like your house to smell like cinnamon and cloves and those sort of things, you can just get those instead of the Glade plug-in synthetic version. You can get the actual oils and put them in.
Another place too is if you're getting your car washed, to not have them use like a car air freshener thing. They have the diffuser plugins for the car that like go into like the cigarette whatever thing is called, that you can just put, like, they're so small, like really, really cute. So you can always just use that if you do want, like, the air in your car to like smell really nice or lovely.
So just to be clear, there are like the Glade version of those, and then there's like the natural essential oil version, which is what we're talking about.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, so there are, even I think you can get them at your grocery store, your pharmacy, or like the more natural kind of pharmacies or Whole Foods. They have these really awesome, if you don't want the diffuser that diffuses water and air, they have these really awesome plugins. They're like those Glade plugins, but they're literally just I have one in my hallway. If you chat for a second, I'm going to go grab it.
Yeah, no, go for it. Go get it. I'm very curious to know, what this is. But those are definitely something that I love to use in my car too. It's just something that will help to give my car a nice little scent versus it smelling like, the scents that come from the car wash. Even the ones that like hang on the, what's it called? On like the window, or on the mirror. Also wants to really avoid as well too.
So this one, I'm pretty sure I got this.
Oh, fun.
Maybe from Sprouts, maybe from Whole Foods. Okay. It's one of those more natural grocery stores. It's getting blown out here. Do I do this thing?
So influencer like.
Yeah, I know. I've never done this before, but I think this is supposed to work. Clearly, I'm not doing it right. So as you can see, there's the plug in the back, and then it's got this like orb thing. Oh. And inside of the orb, you will see there is this little pad. It's literally just like a cloth pad. All you do is this little pad, you put a couple drops of essential oil in there. You slide it into this part, which when you plug it in, gets heated ever so gently. So it's not like hot. It's not boiling or anything. It's just warm. And then the heat then diffuses the essential oil smell into the room. So you can, make your own flavor or blend or scent or whatever. So this is actually the closest thing to a Glade plug-in, and it works extremely well. So you only need to put a drop or two of the essential oil, and it will diffuse into a whole room. So if you guys, it's really simple. You just plug it into the wall. And I think what you were talking about is that there are car versions of these that you can put in a cigarette lighter.
Yes, exactly.
Similarly have, like a little pad or a little diffuser on them so you can freshen your car naturally with that kind of mechanism as well.
Exactly.
So so perfumes, get rid of them. I know I grew up too in the Midwest. I had like my favorite designer perfume that I would go to the mall and I'd get for like my birthday or whatever. That has long since left my life. And I don't know if, we have a lot of people who are really sensitive in this community. And I know that they themselves will just say, I cannot be around perfumes or cologne, or when, people wear their whatever Axe spray or their designer perfumes, like Chanel number 5 or whatever it is.
I went into like a department store the other week because I had to use the restroom. I was like out and about, and I was like, Nordstrom has a bathroom. I'm going to Nordstrom. But the only way like to it was to walk through like the section where it's like all the perfume, and I was suffocating. And I had a mask on too, which I don't think was like helpful, but it was, oh my God. I was like, wow, I've become so sensitive to this.
Yeah. So take it from us canaries and sensitive people. If you are still using designer perfumes, or even if they're not designer, if they're just whatever fragrances or perfumes, and they're not quite bothering you yet, listen to the canaries in that they are not healthy for us. And I know it can be hard because scent is such a Emotional limbic response. So sometimes when I still smell those perfumes, like if I get a whiff of it from something from my childhood, it really brings back a lot of memories. But you know, in the big picture, it's not really worth it. So you can create custom blends yourself with some natural scents from flower essence or essential oils, and use that as a spray instead.
There's actually perfume that I've been wearing for like the past 3 years. It's called Clean Beauty, and they have it at like Sephora. So you could like, if there's one nearby, you could always do that or order it online. But it's organic, incredibly clean. They have like a list of no ingredients that they don't use in any of their products, which lists a lot of these kind of endocrine disruptors, even things like acetone and gluten and parabens. It's like synthetic coloring, like that some perfumes use to make the perfume look like orange or fancy or whatever. But the scents are all really light, really lovely. It's like my favorite and I don't wear perfume every day, but like if I'm out and about, like I will spray it. Otherwise, I'm using essential oils like on my wrist, behind my ears.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is lovely. So
awesome. So I haven't gotten any of those brands, but you said Sephora carries natural.
Sephora carries it. Yeah. It's called Clean Beauty. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. We will put that in the guide. So she'll put the name of that in there. But if I do, I usually just make my own little blend of a spray bottle with some diluted water and a couple drops of essential oil is all it takes.
Perfect.
Okay. So as we're wrapping up here, we're going to get to 2 more sources of a healthy home and then go over our top tips of what you guys can do, just actions. So if you have any questions, start throwing your questions into the comments now. So when we get to the Q&A, we'll have a chance to answer them if you do have any questions. So the next thing we want to talk about is a little bit more esoteric because you can't really see or smell this, but it has to do with you know, the light and the energy and the vibrations around us. So the first one is light pollution in our house. And so Neeyaz is going to talk to us a little bit about light and how that impacts us and how that can be light pollution as well, which a lot of times people don't think of our light source as something that is polluting us.
Exactly. So light pollution is essentially the presence of any light that's not wanted, that's not appropriate for the given time. So for example, it might be like light from the laptop late at night or even like early in the morning or anything that's really more or less artificial lighting. And the reason for that is because it can really disrupt something like our circadian rhythm. It can mess with our melatonin levels. It can affect our sleep and that essentially will affect our endocrine system, and then it kind of ripples out. So things that I personally love to do, and I'm sure that you also probably do it as well, is using like a screen filter on both my laptop and my phone so that it starts to filter out the blue light towards the end of the day. So usually around like 4 or 5 o'clock, my screen's starting to look like a little orange, like a little bit more tinted. And that's because the blue light is starting to diminish on my screens. That's number 1. Number 2 is if you do have to be on your computer after the sun has set, or if you're just like watching Netflix, like we all have been, I wear blue light blocking glasses. These are my favorite that I've been wearing for like 2 years now. And I don't really know how well you can see it on the screen, but they're kind of orange, yellowish tinted. But I love to wear these at night, like when I'm on my computer, if I know the sun is setting and I still have a little bit of work to do, if I'm going to watch a movie or a TV show. These are ones that I love to wear. And we'll put a link for that with a discount code for our Canary members too. And if you can avoid being on or being in front of a screen late at night, that is probably the most like opportune, thing that you could do. So for example, in the morning, make sure that the very first thing that your eyes are really exposed to is light from outside. So going outside, exposing yourself to the actual natural light is really going to help to also rebalance and recalibrate your circadian rhythm versus waking up and the first thing being you look at your phone or you look at a computer or you look at a TV. That starts to really disrupt the system. So go outside, look at the sun, even like during the day, just like go outside and look at the sun, step away from your computer screen. These are all just like little tips that I like to utilize throughout my day that really help to diminish any sort of light pollution.
Yeah. And what she mentioned with the computer screen, it's a free app. We'll put the link in the mini guide. I think it's called Flux app.
Flux, yeah, that's the one I
And
use.
yeah, it's free. You can install it on your computer. And like she said, right when it knows your time zone and when the sun starts to set, it starts changing the color balance of your screen to more reflect the natural, look of what light exposure would be. And the main reason behind that, if you're kind of curious why that even matters, is it just has to do with our circadian rhythms and the way that our brain releases hormones and neurotransmitters and all those chemical processes that happen in our body. They would happen in this circadian rhythm, this 24-hour cycle. And before artificial light and technology and all electricity and all of that, we had to sync ourselves up to the earth and the sun and the moon and all of those things. So those things Neeyaz was talking about when you get up in the morning, expose yourself to natural light, that helps reset those clocks in your body so that they start creating the appropriate chemicals and releasing them at the appropriate times throughout the day. And that also helps with melatonin production at night so that, when you're staring at all these screens, your brain is thinking that it's still broad daylight.
Yeah.
And that's why they're called blue blocking, because when you think about the sun traveling and, over the horizon and setting, when it's at its peak in the day, it's got the most blue light waves coming out. When it's kind of on the horizon, like at sunrise and sunset, it always has that red orange glow. And that's considered more kind of morning and evening light for us. So that's why our screens will turn more red, or we wear these blue blocking glasses because we want to block that blue wavelength from peak midday. So that's a little bit of the why behind why these colors matter. It's kind of really trying to replicate how our circadian rhythm and our cells for centuries, and tens of thousands of years, have adapted to keep us healthy and keep us balanced throughout the day. So the other, and the last one we're going to talk about before we just wrap up with our top tips, is like the other frequencies in our home, like EMFs and Wi-Fi and those sort of things. And so this has become a much bigger topic over the past few years, and people are really starting to understand how it impacts you. I know I experience massive shifts when I am in an environment like my home or a city or an urban environment or even a suburb environment where there's a lot of Wi-Fi and, cell signal and all of that. And then you go somewhere like the middle of Joshua Tree, which I went a couple weeks ago, where it's like the desert, you don't have cell reception, there's no Wi-Fi. And even being there for half an hour, the level of peace that your body and your cells start to feel is so tangible, and particularly for sensitive people. And a lot of times, unless we actually go to the middle of the desert or somewhere, my parents have some property out in a rural part of Sonoma that doesn't have any reception. And when we go there, at first it's like irritating because we don't have GPS, we don't have cell reception, but then you spend an hour there or a night there and you camp out and you wake up and you feel so much more revitalized. And a big part of that is because of the stress of EMFs and Wi-Fi on our cells. Do you have that experience too, Neeyaz?
Oh, totally. I can definitely feel it. There's also, we'll provide this in the mini guide too. There's a link that you can go to where you can put in your zip code and it'll tell you the degree of EMF or 5G within your area or near your home. And so I have recently checked it because they're putting up so many more 5G towers in like LA area. And I don't live in the hub of LA. I live in the suburbs right outside of it. So I was more curious, like, oh my God, are they putting it like out here too? Thankfully they're not really putting that many. And I think the closest EMF for a 5G tower is like 20 some miles away from me, which is a pretty decent distance away. But it's always good to just like check it just to see, especially if you are experiencing symptoms that are usually related to something like EMF sensitivity, such as like fatigue or even just like constant headaches and you don't know where it's coming from, or if your immune system is super depressed, or if you're not sleeping really well. Like, yes, it can be related to so many other things too, but if there is a larger presence of EMF in your area, it could also be due to that as well. So I have a really cool study that I'm going to put in the mini guide. I can't cite it off the top of my head right now, but just about how the EMFs
actually impact the way that our cells are, transporting minerals and electrolytes and those sort of things. And it has to do with our calcium channels and the magnesium levels. So I will put that article in the mini guide if you guys are curious. But there actually is quantifiable data showing how our cells are unable to function properly with all of this EMF around us. Yeah. So one of the things you can actually do, I mean, we can't get rid of it, right? But some of the things you can actually do are some lifestyle things and some supplements. So actually magnesium is a natural calcium ion channel blocker. So this can actually help with that channel leakage, the voltage gate calcium leakage. So taking magnesium is actually a really fantastic way of mitigating or reversing those effects that the EMFs are having. And I know magnesium is, applauded for so many things. I mean, it does so much in our body, and people use it sometimes for constipation or for relaxation or sleep, anxiety, those sort of things. But it actually is a supplement that will really help with EMF sensitivity as well. There's a form magnesium threonate that crosses the blood-brain barrier more easily. One of my favorite brands that is designed for health. It's called Neuromag. And another one is magnesium malate. This is a really great way of getting that magnesium absorbed. And like we were talking about baths earlier, adding Epsom salts to your baths. This is magnesium sulfate, I believe. And this one gets absorbed through our skin and helps with those calcium ion channel leakage as well, because we're adding magnesium into it. Also found vitamin D really helps mitigate the sensitivity of EMFs for people. So vitamin D is neuroprotective. It's also immune modulating, really important for chronic illness, autoimmune folks. If your vitamin D levels are not optimal, you're really going to struggle. And it's correlated with pretty much every chronic illness that they found. So you really want your vitamin D levels between 50 to 75. You don't want them too high. You definitely don't want them too low. But most people's, I measure this on a regular basis with my clients in my practice. Rarely do I come across somebody who has ideal vitamin D levels. So getting sun exposure, taking vitamin D supplementation, and especially if you're not getting a lot of sun exposure, you want to supplement even more.
Even so, when we are getting sun exposure, a lot of the times we're not outside for long enough, or we're covered, or we're wearing sunscreen, which yes, wear sunscreen, but also if you can expose your bare skin to the sun for even just 10 minutes, a couple of times a day throughout the day, that will help as well too.
I think the baseline for appropriate amount of sun exposure to get appropriate levels of vitamin D, which is not really possible for everyone, is being butt naked at noon, at sun for 20 minutes.
Every day.
Every day. So unless you can be out in, at lunchtime naked for half an hour every single day,
amazing.
You need to supplement with vitamin D.
Amazing.
And then also another one that helps with EMF exposure is melatonin. So you don't want to overdo melatonin supplementation because it will downregulate your own production of it. But if you aren't able to really get those circadian rhythms in sync through sun exposure or through your lifestyle, melatonin can help improve that quality of sleep with the EMFs as well. So Epsom salts, those sort of things. And also, let's see what else I had written down here. Here's a really great practice that you can do that I know Neeyaz can talk about too, but grounding. This is a really great way of resetting those energy fields in our home, in our body. There's grounding mats you can buy, but the easiest, freest, cheap way of grounding is going and sticking your feet in the earth. So whether that's grass, sand, dirt, connecting with the earth, will automatically start to discharge the negative ion buildup in your body from that EMF exposure. So if you can get your bare feet in anything, grass, dirt, sand, whatever, again, for about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes every day, you will automatically start to discharge that negative ion buildup.
Exactly.
So Yeah. You want to add to the ground? I know you love the grounding
I
practice.
love grounding. I actually did a whole like yoga practice yesterday just on the grass without my mat, and it was just lovely. You also just feel like, I mean, you feel grounded. You feel like you feel totally balanced. You feel recalibrated, and it's not placebo. It really is. There's a lot of studies. There's actually a really great documentary on Netflix. I think it's actually called Earthing. I think it's called Earthing.
Cool.
That talks about the benefits of grounding, because they kind of use the two terms interchangeably, earthing or grounding. But that's a really powerful, if you want to like understand a little bit more, that's a great place to start too. I love a good documentary.
If you're not super into getting your feet dirty and doing the barefoot thing, forest bathing is also proven to do similar things where you literally just surround yourself in trees. It doesn't mean you actually take a bath in the forest. It just means you.
Although that sounds absolutely fantastic.
It's just you're just out in nature. Like you're surrounded by more trees and vegetation than you are buildings and electricity and those sort of things. So that's forest bathing. And another one that really helps discharge those negative ions is being around running water. So around a waterfall, the waves of the ocean, rain, those sort of things. That movement will also help dispel that energy buildup in our body. All right.
We have a whole, I mean, we explained EMF to detail. We have a whole list of ways to kind of protect yourself or limit your exposure to EMF that include things like nutrition, such as having things like cilantro, which are really amazing at removing heavy metals from the body. All of that is in the mini guide with links to all the different products and tests that we've talked about too.
Yeah. So just to wrap up, we're going to give you some of, I don't know, top 10, top 7 tips here. So when this is all EMF. Sorry, I'm looking at the EMF things, our notes right now. Oh, we didn't cover the Dirty Dozen. Talk about that real quick.
I know. I just threw that and I was like, oh, darn. So I touched a little bit in the beginning about the different like pesticides that are generally used and sprayed on foods and soils that are generally conventionally grown. So the other side of that are things that are organically grown, that are not sprayed with pesticides, either on the product itself or within the soil. So there's 2 different lists. There's a clean 15, which are the top 15 foods that have the least amount of pesticides, that you don't necessarily have to buy them organic. If you want to, by all means, go for it. But if you don't have access to it, or you don't need to, or if it's expensive, these are the ones that are generally safest. Something like avocado, for example, kiwi, cauliflower, pineapple, you don't have to buy those organic. Those are on the clean 15. And then you also have the other side of the list, which is the Dirty Dozen list, which are the top 12 foods that you should try to buy organically as often as possible. Things like strawberries, things like mostly all the berries, really. Cherries, peaches, kale, nectarines, which are in season right now too, tomatoes. Those are the ones that you really want to try to buy organic as much as you can, but the ones that are on the clean 15, you don't necessarily need to. So we have a whole list of what those are within the mini guide as well.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, I know this is a lot of information. We covered a lot this month, and the mini guide is, like you said, it's just like a textbook, but more like a SparkNote textbook.
Don't be overwhelmed. It's fantastic.
So here are my favorite ways of mitigating all of the home stress and toxins in your environment. The first thing that we are very diligent about in our house is removing shoes at the door. And that's because there's a lot of toxins in the external environment, like even just the sidewalk. If you go walk, in your neighborhood and the sidewalk, you have to think about the pollution that's in the environment that cars dispel from their exhaust, that rains comes on, or just industrial toxins. They land on the asphalt, they land on the grass. So our shoes come into contact with that, and then we bring that into our home. So one of the easiest ways is just having a no shoe rule in your house. So always removing shoes at the door, making sure you don't walk around your house with shoes on. What's another one
that I'm like meticulous about, and I'm also just allergic to it in general, is dusting or vacuuming my home. I think I dust my floors every other day. One could be because I'm just kind of OCD about it. 2, because honestly, like it does make a huge difference in even just like my allergies. Like even like topically, like my skin, I'll have less rashes if I know that the dust in my house is, clean and there's not a lot of it in there. But again, like similarly to removing your shoes in the home, if you're not doing that, you're then carrying and bringing in all those different toxins and such into your home, and you're walking around your home, and then you're touching your shoes, and then you're touching other things, and that dust just starts to settle. And if you don't clean that up, that's a huge way of, you know, really bringing in those toxins into your home, which you don't want to have. So
yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what you're talking about that you feel intuitively, there's actually studies around that dust being the majority of these toxins, like from the flame retardants and the things that are coming off of our furniture, the things that we are getting exposed to, and then we're breathing them in and they're getting in through our lung barrier system.
Thanks for not making me sound so OCD.
Yeah. So vacuuming and like dusting and vacuuming often, if you can daily or a couple times a week, is one of the best ways of mitigating like that exposure to things like flame retardants and those chemicals that are in our environment and our furniture. So removing shoes at the door, vacuuming often. This one's a little bit weirder, but it's a cool one to try. If you don't have access to going and camping in the middle of the desert all the time, one thing you want to do is reduce your exposure to any of these EMFs or electricity at nighttime. So most simply, you want to put your phone in airplane mode.
Yeah.
That's like the first step. You want to put in airplane mode away from you. Don't sleep with it on your bed. Put it like away on the nightstand or like in another room.
Yeah.
Don't bring it in your bedroom if you can, because that's where we spend a good, you know, should be 8-9 hours of our day. So airplane mode is the first step. Turn it off completely is the next step. And then a little bit more drastic, but it's a cool experiment to try, is actually turning off your Wi-Fi, but even further, going and turning off the breaker, the fuse that goes to the electrical circuits in your bedroom. Obviously, don't turn off the fuse or circuits or anything that goes to your refrigerator or to anything that's like your security system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or like your smoke detector or those things. Make sure those should be battery operated anyway, but turning off the circuits, and then actually, because there is like electricity and energy, EMFs coming out of our electrical circuits in the wall. So as an experiment on the extreme level, just try finding that breaker in your bedroom and turning it off and seeing if you experience deeper sleep or more peaceful.
Yeah, definitely. That's one that I'm very religious about, that one too. Even like unplugging things from the wall is another step too that you can do also. So if you're one to like charge your phone overnight, charge it outside of the bedroom in another room overnight.
I mean, it's called dirty electricity. It's like where it kind of comes out of appliances or
exactly.
All right, let's wrap up these last tips. What's the next one, Neeyaz?
Sweating, which I've been doing quite a while, much of lately, but especially in something like an infrared sauna, if you can. There's also like sauna blankets that you can always purchase that are really great, but sweating is another just natural, easy way of removing toxins from the body. If you don't have access to like an infrared sauna or a sauna, even just like going outside, you know, sweating, working out, doing something that's going to increase that heat in your body to then externally leave your body is a fantastic way of also removing any sort of heavy metals or toxins too.
Yeah, when they analyze sweat, they find a lot of those like endocrine disruptors that we talk about, they actually come out through sweat pathways. So exercise is wonderful. We talk about infrared sauna a lot in particular because it's just a little more potent and powerful in getting those toxins out. But regular old sweat is just as good. So do that. Make sure you towel it off. You wipe it off. You take a shower right away because you don't want it to get reabsorbed back through your skin.
Exactly.
Another easy one we talked about is just stop using fragrances, stop buying them, stop using them, and switch to essential oils, flower essence, or just fans, air filters, those sort of things.
Eating organically, which we talked about. So sticking to Dirty Dozen, Clean 15 is another easy step too.
Yeah. And we talked about this a lot last month in our gut health session. So if you didn't get the mini guide for that one, go download it because there's like specific tips. But reducing, replacing, removing plastics as much as you can, particular if that plastic comes in contact with oil, heat, acid, soap, fermented liquids, like, you know, fermenting sauerkraut or whatever in a plastic container, or storing your cooking fats in plastic are all big no-nos, because all of these things start to break down the the makeup of those plastics, and then they start leaching those chemicals into it. So when then you eat the oil or you use the soap or whatnot, it's broken down and then you end up absorbing it. So just getting rid of plastic use. And if you do, only really using it with dry, cool things and not anything that's warm or oily or acidic.
Exactly.
And finally, we already talked about this one extensively, but nature.
Nature.
Yeah. So anything, the grounding, the forest bathing, the being around moving water, getting like the actual sun rays on you. These are all ways that help our cells detox, dispel negative ions, mitigate anything that can be either an endocrine disruptor or a vibrational energy shifter in our home as well. So there's a lot there's a lot to tackle. Take it step by step. Do the things that feel easiest to you, like buying this instead of a Glade plug-in. That's just a swap and you never have to think about it again. Or stop using dryer sheets and use wool balls instead. Take your shoes off at the door. These are all things that massively impact the way that your body starts to experience a healthy, holistic home environment.
Exactly. Amazing. Every time I think of shoes off the door, I think of just growing up, and I know you can relate to this too.
Yeah.
Culturally, it's like a big no-no.
It's built into so many cultures. I mean, in a lot of cultures, you're never allowed to take shoes into home. Even in a lot of like religious environments or buildings, you just see all the shoes lined up outside, and people go indoors without them. So. All right. Well, thanks everyone who joined us for this hour on holistic home. It was really lovely having you. If you want those mini guides or you're interested in the past few months, the healthy gut we did, I don't remember what the month before was, but all those.
Was the skin? Was it the skin?
Maybe. Yeah. Our recipes are up there, our product recommendations, our video replays, and our mini guides, which are what all our members say are the most valuable gold thing. And we have Mary Falahi saying thanks. That was so helpful.
You're welcome.
And Heather, this was excellent information. You ladies are amazing. We love you, Heather. Thanks for being here. And
stay cool, Heather.
Yes. Stay cool. And take care, guys. Love your home. Set it up as a sacred space. It's where we spend a lot of our times, and we all need to recharge there.
Absolutely.
So it was great hanging out with you guys, and we will see you next month.
See you in July. Bye, everyone.